What is up, everyone? This is Raphael Garcia here on Thursday, November 11th, for episode 101 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. This lock right here always stands straight up. But this is Raphael Garcia back for episode 101 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the show whenever you do, whether it be right when I post it a week later or whenever that may be. But either way, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe because we appreciate all of your support. And you can always find my content at rgarcia_sports on both Instagram and Twitter. This podcast you can catch at MMA Ratings Net on both YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and also MMA Ratings Net and .com, which is our flagship. You can hit us up at all of our podcast networks, which is Anchor, Breaker, Podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Overcast, and Spotify. Check us out in all those places. Be sure to subscribe in each one of those platforms as well too. And I want to, as always, again, thank you for your time because it is greatly appreciated. And I'm here to talk about a couple of different topics. It's been a little while, almost a month since I've done a show, and there's plenty of reasons around that, but that's neither here nor there. But this is episode 101, and I have a lot to talk about, including previewing AEW Full Gear, which is this weekend, talking about WWE and their recent round of releases, and also the impact that those cuts will have and the show overall. And that's really it today. Those are the only two topics we'll be hitting on, and we'll be moving on from there. Sorry about that. Let me mute my phone, and we'll be moving on from there. But as always, again, thank you for taking the time to check out this show. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share as often as you possibly can. So let's go ahead and jump into the AEW Full Gear predictions. Now, AEW has done. I was a little concerned about Full Gear because I didn't feel like it was going to be a show that was set up to be as exciting as some of the other shows in the past. Like, you knew All Out was going to be a big show. I was already planning on going to All Out even before the CM Punk news has broken. I'm thankful that I did because that saved me almost $500 on the tickets that I ended up buying. But you knew that show was going to be a big moment and a big show. Full Gear now, as of like the last 2 weeks, feels like a show that is building in anticipation and building in excitement. But before that, it didn't really feel like it was going to be a show that was really going to draw a lot of attention. At least in my opinion, it felt like a show that was going to occur, but maybe not be as big of a moment as many people thought it was going to be, or at least as anticipated as it is heading into this weekend. But looking at the card, there's a lot to really be interested in and a lot to look forward to. There's going to be some great wrestling, just regardless of the fact, because that's what AEW puts out each and every show. I love their ability to put on epic shows 4 or 5 times a year. That's a perfect amount to me. Maybe if they did like once a quarter or something like that, even still, like that's a perfect amount to me. And they're really showing the value of every bit of content that they really put out. So looking at this pay-per-view, I think it's going to be good. I'm actually not going to be able to watch it live just because I will be unavailable at the time. But I am looking forward to seeing some of these matches when as soon as I get back home on Monday morning, and being able to sit down and watch some of this content. And we're going to run through all of these matches here. And usually that's one thing that's even much different than what we do with the WWE pay-per-views, because I skip the stuff that I'm not interested in. And that usually results in me skipping 3 or so matches of the pay-per-view. We have Survivor Series coming up the week after this, and I may not actually do a full preview show of it. I'll probably just include that on that episode of the podcast next week. But there isn't much I'm looking forward to on that card at all, other than Roman Reigns versus Big E. Outside of that, nothing on that card really matters at all. Even that match itself doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, in a sense, because Roman's going to win that. But back to Full Gear, and there's a lot to really look at from this card. Everything, I'm not going to say everything matters, but there's enough here that you can really look at this card and be excited about this. There could be something for everyone on this card. There is one match that I'm not interested in now that I sit here and look at it, and that's the Inner Circle versus American Top Team. So I want to talk about that match, but not necessarily that match itself, but just more of like the fact that this feud has long outstayed its welcome. But let's start with the buy-in first, and we have Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter teaming up to take on Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa. And this is a match to me personally, I don't think is necessary per se. I would have much now. What I mean by that is that it just seems like a random pairing, in my opinion. Like Thunder Rosa has been pairing with, she's been teaming with Anna Jay and Ty Conti. She had a match with them on Dynamite and a match with them on Dark, I believe, last week. Hikaru Shida has been in a great feud with Serena Deeb, so maybe that'll be something that we see pop back up. Jamie Hayter and Nyla Rose, I'm not sure why they're even partnering together when Hayter is paired with Britt Baker, and Britt Baker actually has issues with Nyla Rose, so I'm not sure if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm missing something because I haven't seen Dark and Dark Elevation, so maybe I've missed something that would kind of further that story. But just on paper, that match doesn't really jump off the page to me. There's the continued complaint about the women constantly being on the buy-in rather than having multiple matches on the pay-per-view, which is again going to occur here as there's just one match with women on the actual pay-per-view. If they wanted to book a women's match on the buy-in, they should have done Shida versus D3 for because those two ladies killed it last week on AEW Dynamite. I believe that's where that match was, and their first match was excellent as well too. That match left me almost speechless just because those two women went in there and they tore the show up. So if you have not seen that match, go back and watch both of them. Actually, if you can sit down and watch both matches back to back, even if you've seen them before, I recommend that you go ahead and do that because those two women really put on a show and they tore up everything that they possibly could. So if there had to be a women's match on the buy-in, there should have been a way to book these two ladies against each other. I get what they're getting at because this match does have, I don't want to say it has not necessarily impact, but all four of these women are still in the TBS title tournament. So maybe they could have done something with that. Maybe have some more of those elimination matches on this card, something. But this match seems a little out of place in that sense. It's almost hard to kind of see who's going to win. Maybe Shida and Rosa, just because those two women are so over from a general standpoint of things. I can see them pulling that out. But I know it's going to be a good match. It's going to be fun. I like all four of these ladies. I think they are four of the best women on the AEW roster. Even that says a lot for Hayter because she's still new compared to the other three. So this should be fun, and it'll be. I wonder one thing about the buy-ins I really want to know is like how much of an impact they have on getting people to purchase the pay-per-view. So that'll be something to watch. I'm not sure if this is the match that has the same type of impact to do that, but it should be a good one. I want to move on to the next match we're going to talk about, where we have Pac and Cody Rhodes taking on Malachi Black and Andrade. Excuse me. I'm not going to call him his full name. He's still Andrade to me. This match, this could have been on the buy-in, personally. If I would have done anything, this could have been on the buy-in, and then I would have put another women's match on this card. I see Malachi Black and Andrade winning this match because I don't see them cutting Black's momentum in any way, shape, or form. He lost to Cody Rhodes, and we know that the angle is going to be Cody Rhodes turning heel at some point in time. I don't know if it happens here, but I predict Black picking up the win. This is going to be a fun one. I know that for sure. I know all 4 of these women are going to show out. And Pac, he has to be AEW champion at some point in time. Everyone who follows the show, follows my social media, you know I love him and you know I hype him up anytime I can. So I'm looking forward to seeing what his singles run looks like. But this is a good way to keep him on the card and keep him active. But I see this being a victory for Malachi Black and Andrade. Another match that I don't really care too much about, Christian Cage and Jurassic Express versus the Super Click, Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. So I get why they're doing this match. Again, this is another match that could be on the buy-in. It doesn't have to be on the pay-per-view. I get why they're doing that match. It's just going to further the storyline around the Super Click. We know we're headed to a situation where Adam Cole turns on the Elite. We don't know where everyone's going to go. Where does everyone's allegiances lie? So that's going to be a good question there. But I am looking forward to that angle. But this match right here doesn't necessarily need to occur at this time, at least not on the pay-per-view. I think that there's another way that they could go about doing that rather than taking up another slot on this card. I will say AEW continuously puts on long pay-per-views, which is one complaint I have of them. This will be a 9-match event unless there's something special happens. 9 matches, that's a lot. And I don't necessarily agree with those matches being that long because you're definitely going to lose someone over that time. But this is a match that doesn't need to happen in my opinion on a pay-per-view. I expect the Super Click to win, and they're going to continue furthering the angle of Adam Cole fighting against Kenny Omega for the leadership of the Elite, or maybe necessarily breaking off something of his own. I'm gonna come back to that one. I'm gonna talk about that one. That's my main event. But Darby Allin versus MJF, okay. I expect MJF to win here. I think he is going to be the next champion after Adam Page, and I'm okay with that. He's not my cup of tea per se, but I get why people like him. He is a great heel. He does what he needs to do as a heel. He rouses people up, gets them fired up, gets people wanting to throw water on him. I get why people hate MJF and why that makes him good at his job. He's just not for me. I think this is going to be a good match. He is a very underrated wrestler. I will say that. I remember his match with Jungle Boy a couple months back, or last year actually. It was at 2019. Maybe that was 2019. But his match with Jungle Boy, that impressed me. I wasn't expecting that much out of him, but he can go when the stakes matter. He reminds me. I'm not gonna say he reminds me of the Miz in that case, but he can put on a good match that keeps people involved and engaged, and that really kind of caught me off guard. And I expect this one to really be like that as well too. This will be a good match, and I expect him to get the victory and keep pushing towards the title, which is going to be his probably midpoint next year. Let's see. This will be a great one. The Lucha Brothers versus FTR. This is going to be great tag team wrestling here. I saw something on Twitter earlier today from Charlie Haas talking about, is tag team wrestling dead? And it was an interesting question to me. He's going to be doing a live about that, or whatever it's called, spaces about that on Twitter tomorrow. But he wants to talk about whether or not tag team wrestling is dead, and I do not think it's dead in any way, shape, or form. These two teams really embody two different aspects of tag team wrestling. You have the Lucha style, which comes in obviously with the Lucha Brothers. Then you have FTR, and FTR are a cut straight out of 70s and 80s tag team wrestling. I mean, everything that they do, if you watch their matches, a lot of the stuff calls back to old school tag teams that we all watched growing up, probably even from generations before us as well too. So to look at that and think that tag team wrestling is dead is a little bit much to me. Is it as prevalent as it once was? No. I mean, obviously you have WWE, who doesn't take tag team wrestling seriously at all. They put tag teams together to get one guy over and split them up. And the women's tag team, let's not even talk about that. But in AEW, I think it does have a place. It is better booked. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interesting tag teams to me right now. But FTR and the Lucha Brothers, even with LAX as well too, are two teams that are a couple of teams that I'm really interested in seeing. And I wasn't the biggest FTR fans even when they were in the WWE. I expect the Lucha Brothers to win here and retain their titles. This is going to be a great match, and I'm glad to see it be two teams that are a little bit different than the Young Bucks or someone else being in the title picture. But I do think that this is going to be an excellent match and an excellent clash of styles between the two groups. So I want to talk about the Inner Circle versus American Top Team match, and yeah, this is just stupid to me. I've been saying week after week that we do not need this feud any longer. I don't need Chris Jericho on my television. I don't want Jake Hager on my television. Dan Lambert can get the hell out of my face. If anything, there's some value in Paige Van Zandt in professional wrestling because people will want to see that. And I was even surprised by her star power when it went beyond mixed martial arts. People made she's not a Ronda Rousey type of numbers draw, but she definitely has a following, and it's one that is bigger than I really understood it to be. Yeah, it may be a whole bunch of guys chasing after her, loving her OnlyFans and all that other content that she puts out, but she can draw some eyeballs, and that's why BKFC wanted to book main events around her, even though her fighting career doesn't necessarily garner that type of success. So if something occurs to where she ends up in pro wrestling, I could see her having some success there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long time thing. 1 or 2 matches. Her versus Thunder Rosa. Her versus not necessarily a Britt Baker, but her versus a Shida or someone else. She can pop a rating. She can help move some numbers for AEW in a small stance, and that's something I would be interested in seeing. But the rest of this, I'm just not here for it. Like the Inner Circle, I just want them to free Sammy Guevara and Santana and Ortiz and get them away from Jericho and Hager. I can't stand those 2 guys, and like nothing about them is interesting to me any longer. Then you have Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, 2 men who don't need a voice in Dan Lambert. 2 men who, if they had a feud and angle going on against each other, they would be tearing it up right now. And I'll say this about Scorpio Sky because I tweeted it earlier and somebody responded to me as well too. But here we are in 2021. AEW can't continue ignoring the reactions that Black fans have for some of the Black professional wrestlers that they have on their roster. Scorpio Sky was one of them. A lot of people thought that he would have been in the title picture by now. He would have probably have been their first Black champion at some point in time, and he continues to Black singles champion, and he hasn't hit that mark. And there's no real reason why. They've elevated him up to the TNT title twice just to have him lose, and I believe he recently signed a 5-year deal on top of what he has. So there is clearly some value that they see in him. But I hope that they do something with him of a stronger background once he gets out of this feud or gets out of this angle in general, and once him and Ethan Page split, because there are. But I would like to see something of a singles run from him because I think it would be fantastic. And Ethan Page as well. He is, again, he's another guy who's outperforming in my opinion. I think he looks good in everything that he does. He's great on the mic. He's good in the ring. And I am interested in whenever I see him on television. I think both of those guys could fit within the main event picture and definitely be seen as a credible champion or a credible contender. Then we have Bryan Danielson versus Miro, which is the AEW World Championship Eliminator Finals. These 2 guys are going to beat the hell out of each other. Full stop. Bryan Danielson is putting on a hell of a run in AEW. I saw someone tweet that he has to be considered the wrestler of the year, and I still think that Kenny Omega still deserves that because he's been doing it all year. I actually wrote about him last year, setting himself up to have a big 2021, and he's my wrestler of the year without any argument there. But Bryan Danielson has been putting on a show and having fun the entire way. So Miro is stepping in for Jon Moxley. Moxley's in alcohol treatment center, in inpatient treatment for alcoholism right now, and best wishes out to him and his family. But Miro stepped in, defeated Orange Cassidy, and now he is in the finals as well too. As much as I want to see Miro in the world title picture, I don't think it can happen quite yet. I don't want to see him win this match and then lose to Adam Page. That very well could happen, though, because I believe Adam Page is going to win the title on Saturday, and Miro could be an interesting first opponent for him. But Bryan Danielson has been on a run. If you look at every single one of his matches in AEW, he just keeps elevating the bar. He just keeps pushing the bar up, pushing the bar up, pushing the bar up, and he's doing so many great things in the ring, reminding people why professional wrestling is great, and reminding people why great workers are what build this business and great characters are what build. He hasn't really been much of a character, other than I want to get out here and I want to beat the shit out of you and I want to have great matches. That has been his whole character so far, and it's been working, and it's been working very well because I every match of his is must see TV. Bobby Fish must see TV. Suzuki must see. His match with Raphael the other day, last night, great episode. I mean, of course, one with Kenny Omega, fantastic as well too. He continues to put on fantastic shows, and they cannot be missed. And this is going to be a great one as well too. Him and Miro are going to go at it. I expect a lot of big power spots. I don't think he's worked with a big power man yet since being in AEW. So let's see what this match looks like and how different it looks than one of the ones he may have had in WWE. But it's going to be a good one. This can easily be match of the night when we're all said and done. I want to talk about Britt Baker and Ty Conti. This is going to be a good match. I think Ty Conti is going to have a lot of hope spots, a lot of close falls, but that title is staying around Britt's waist, and I don't know who they have to take it off of her, because all the women that I thought could take it off of her are in the TBS title tournament: Thunder Rosa, Jade Cargill. So I don't know who they believe that they're going to tee up to be seen as a champion for Baker, but they better do it before fans start to turn on her, because I'm starting to get to. I mean, I've never been high on her. I'm starting to get tired of her. I see some people really kind of looking at who's going to be the one to take the belt off of her. I'm not going to say AEW fans are going to turn on her per se, but people want to see a credible challenger. And it's almost kind of clear that AEW doesn't know which woman that they want to kind of take the belt off of her so far. And that's telling to me. I don't think that is Tay Conti. I would be highly surprised if she won this match and if she became a champion. I don't want to see Thunder Rosa near Britt right now unless they plan on making a title switch. I think Big Swole will be an interesting challenger for her next, because I could see Big Swole taking the L there even and being 1-1 between the two. I don't want Jade anywhere near Britt either right now. So, I think Thunder will be the next individual after this. But Tay on Saturday, she'll have a great match with Britt. There are things that I think that they both do well, which will work. I think there's going to be a lot of hope spots. Tay does fill the void of being a good baby face that people can really root behind. I expect NJ to get involved, of course, obviously with Jamie Hayter and Reba out there as well too. So it'll be a good match between the two, and I look at Britt Baker picking up the victory there. Now I want to talk about what is my most anticipated match of the night, hands down. CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston. Now they built this match in 2 weeks? 2.5 weeks, because it started right after Ed Kingston lost to Danielson, I think, on a Rampage. In 2 weeks, they've made this the most interesting feud in professional wrestling. Full stop. At least in North American professional wrestling. The promos, they haven't even, well, they did get into a scuffle in the ring once, but they haven't had multiple matches against each other. They've had promos against each other. They've had segments, but that's it. And that has been enough to get everyone brought in to this match. The Players Tribune article that Kingston released this week also helps with that. Knowing everything about the background between these two helps with that. This is going to be a match that I am looking forward to beyond all of the others. I tweeted yesterday that outside of Johnny Gargano and Kushida from January or Valentine's Day, whatever day that was, earlier this year, Dragunov, Walter 2, this match sits as just as high as those two on my most anticipated matches list. I think they're going to tear it up. They're going to beat the hell out of each other. And this is going to be the match that we're going to be talking about after the after the night. Kingston, I saw someone compare him to almost like a Stone Cold type of character, and I get that. He doesn't need all the victories and all that stuff. He's always going to be legit. Fans are always going to be behind him, and I get that. So he can eat the L to CM Punk, but he continues to elevate himself in a way that I don't think anyone really kind of saw. Even after he joined AEW, a lot of people were behind him. He has been delivering something exceptional each time and every time he's in the ring, and he does not fail in spots like this. And I'm looking forward to this match probably more than anything else on this card. Anything that I've looked forward to in wrestling since that Dragunov match with Walter or Omega and Danielson from a couple weeks back. This match is the match to watch, and I guarantee you it's going to be on some match of the year list as well too. Then the main event, Kenny Omega versus Adam Hangman Page. This will be a good one. I expect Page to win. This is kind of like that moment for him. It's going to be huge. It's going to be, I don't want to say a coming of age type of moment, but he was a guy that they tagged to be their face of the promotion when they started. Unfortunately, that wasn't going to be the case. Now he had to be built back up almost 3 times, to be honest with you. He had to be built back up, let down, built back up, let down. This is the story that they've been telling for 2 years, and they've been telling it very well. You can't tell me that this angle hasn't had people brought in, and they've been doing things every step of the way to kind of help build that. So I am really looking forward to this match. I think it's going to be an excellent match between the two. They've had excellent matches in the past, and that moment of Page hoisting the title over his head is going to be huge. I expect a huge pop for the 3 count. It's going to be great. This is kind of it's almost weird. It's like Kenny Omega's been building himself up for this moment. So I'm really looking forward to what we're all going to see here, but I do expect Adam Page to get the victory here. It'll be interesting to see where AEW goes forward without Kenny Omega as a champion. They'll be fine. I'm not saying like it's going to be the demise or anything like that. It's just going to be interesting to see what's next for him and how they kind of build him up. It's hard to keep a babyface champion hot for an extremely amount of time. But they've done that with Jon Moxley before. So let's see what this looks like, and I expect some really good things. And I think this match is going to really rock. So that's it for my full gear preview. Let's talk about WWE. And as great as as great as AEW has been, WWE's kind of been the opposite. And I'm not going to say all their stuff is bad, because all their shit is not bad. There are plenty of things that they do on a week-to-week basis that I enjoy. I enjoy Xavier Woods. I enjoy some aspects of NXT. I enjoy stuff like, Hit Row I haven't seen Hit Row on TV yet, but I enjoy like some performers per se, and they do give us some good matches on a weekly basis when they give them time or give them the opportunity to. It's just that it's so fleeting, and that's such of a basement that we kind of hold them into, or we hold them acceptable for, that it's just unfortunate that their content can't be what we all know it really can be. And another reason is because they're not a pro wrestling organization. There was a pretty interesting Shug Duncan article where he's talking about, he mentioned it on Fightful actually in passing, but how someone within the company said that they're not a pro wrestling organization. They're an entertainment company that happens to have a ring in their center of it. So no one should be surprised by statements like that. No one should be surprised when they're just creating content to monetize rather than worrying about creating good professional wrestling, because they haven't done great professional wrestling in so long. They've done sports entertainment, but that's where their bread and butter is. And you have to kind of recognize that when you go into watching it sometimes. But still, there's a lot that they could be doing to make their content at least good, which is something that they don't. And this week, they announced another series of cuts right before their financial call once a quarter, and it's almost like expecting it every time a quarter closes. Are there going to be cuts? But this one, man, they're starting to cut into the depth of their roster. Let's look at who they released 18 people. Eva Marie, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross, Nia Jax, Grand Metalik, Lindsay Dorado, B-Fab, Mia Yim, Ember Moon, Frankie Monet, Scarlett Bordeaux, Harry Smith, Oni Lorcan, Trey Baxter, Jeet Rama, Katarina Cortez, Zeta Ramir, and Jessica Maya. Why? We're going to talk about the women's division in a second, but they cut people that they had no business cutting. And who I mean by that, Keith Lee. They could have there's value there. Mia Yim, they could have done something with her. B Fab, they just brought her up as a part of Hit Row, and people were looking at that like this is the steal of the entire call up moment. Ember Moon, Frankie Monet, she only had 6 matches on NXT since being brought over, and you knew the writing was on the wall. I'm going to talk about the women's division in a second as they made shifts within that group, but there's so much depth there that they just cut and said, you know what, we don't need it. Now let's look at the Raw female division. They have Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Carmella, Dana Brooke, Doudrop, Liv Morgan, Nikki Ash, Zelina, Rhea Ripley, Tamina, and Tegan Knox. They have They have 12 women on the Raw roster. On SmackDown, they have 10 women on the SmackDown roster. They just released, how many women did they release off their main roster just in this swing? Well, Mia Yim and B-Fab and Nia Jax. So they released 3 women. Then you looked at Frankie Monet could have been a part of the main roster easily. Same thing with Scarlett Bordeaux. Then they released Katarina, Zeta, and Jessie, who were working pretty consistently on 205 Live. It just completely gutted it. And then you see the news this week about the mandates that women must be 25 years old or younger when you're looking at hiring them. Now, the fact that that's even getting out, like the fact that you put that shit in an email and send that around, like these are the parameters that we're going to be operating by, is asinine to me. When you look at the men's roster, there's no age limit there. They roll Bill Goldberg's ass out there once a month. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. I actually was talking about the Survivor Series matchup where it's the 5-on-5. Everybody in that match is 35 years old or older. So if you're saying that they're women, that all those people would be cut, it doesn't make any sense. Mickie James talked about that on her way out. Frankie Monet actually was tweeting about it as well, too, like the double standard there. But the gutting of this women's division has been ridiculous to watch. And I wrote about this week, that they're going to hurt the bottom line of their product sooner rather than later if they continue this, because people want to see women's wrestling and they want to see good women's wrestling. For WWE, good women's wrestling is the four horsewomen and Asuka. Outside of that, you're getting 3 minutes. 3 minutes tops. And that is not the way to book wrestling. All their stuff is, when it comes to the women, is usually wrapped up in some love or lust angle or something like that. And people don't want to watch that. I would love to see what the demographics with women, what it looks like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, compared to now. Especially when in 2019, for Ronda's 2018 and 2019 run, I want to see what that looks like, because I don't understand how you can be a fan of women's professional wrestling and watch the WWE anymore, unless if you're a fan of like Bianca Belair or the Four Horsewomen or Asuka or something like that. You can be a fan of them. Like I watch WWE because I'm a fan of a lot of their performers, even though I know that the content sucks. Like these stars are going to do the best they can to make it work. And I'm sure that the women on the roster do the same thing. But goodness gracious, this stuff is not good. And I'm concerned about the continued gutting of the women's division on the main roster, and then the continued sexualization of them over on NXT. People call toxic attraction cheeks attraction, and it's so stupid, but it's funny at the same time. I mean, they shoot Mandy Rose from the waist down. That's it. Um, Everything about them is supposed to be sexualized in the most over way as possible, and that's what they think people want to see. Like they're definitely catering to a segment of their demographic that they believe is the basis of their previous success, and unfortunately, it's just not going to work like that anymore. Cora Jade, half of her character is wrapped up around the fact that she has a boyfriend, and they talk about that every time she's on television. Electra Lopez, she was coming into her own for a little bit. She was looking like someone that people could be interested in. She's now in a lust angle with Zion Quinn. So, like, what is the point of this? Like, why is that what they? I mean, that is clear that that's Vince, Bruce, and John Laurinaitis. That's how they look at women, and that's how they're going to book them. And it's unfortunate that that is what we've come to in professional wrestling, in a point where we see women being featured across so many other forms of entertainment in a positive light, in a primary light, but not with professional wrestling. I mean, AEW, they have their challenges with the women's division as well. So I just talked about the fact that they're having a pay-per-view coming up with 10 or 9 matches on the actual pay-per-view, and only one feature women. The buy-in is the buy-in. So we talk about that all the time. There's growth over there. There's opportunities for growth there as well too. But as a whole, it's probably hard being a fan of professional wrestling, being a woman, the same way it was being a black man and wanting to see people who look like me in the main event picture. So just do better. There's a space and opportunity to do better overall. The last thing I wanted to talk about is I was watching Monday Night Raw this week and listening to a lot of the feedback and just watching what people were saying about it on Twitter, and I just had a kind of random thought. But is WWE's weekly product getting better? Question mark. Like there are some things about the stuff that are slowly getting better. Some things sadly, oddly enough, right now I can't really even think about it. Like there are some matches, like for example, I like the way they're booking Big E. Him and Chad Gable had a great match on this week. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins had a great match as well too. So there are spaces that are working from a content standpoint that they put on week in and week out that are enjoyable. But there's a lot not to like as well too. Like even on NXT, I was the Joe Gacy stuff doesn't work for me. I'm actually going to be writing about that this week. But there was stuff to like on the show as well too. I like how they're establishing some stars, drawing out some squash matches. I didn't like that they had Carmelo Hayes lose already as a champion. They need to get on. They need to either shit or get off the pot when it comes to Pete Dunne. Title that man up or not. But there are some things about their content that is getting better, some things that are not. But and part of that is simply because the show, we have such a low bar for the show as well too. But I just wanted to kind of point that out as I talk about pro wrestling this week, and that's really all we're going to be covering. I will be back next week, probably on Thursday as well, to Thursday or Friday, for another edition of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. But as always, you can always check us out across multiple networks. You can hit us up at MMARatingsNet or .com, both of those spaces. You can check us out on YouTube, MMA Ratings, where I do this show, and then every week we do the MMA Ratings podcast with myself and Sharon Humes. You can catch him at Black Jordan Breen across social media. Get me up at rgarcia_sports. All of our podcasts are across all of the various networks that you see, which include Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, and Spotify. And that is it for this week, folks. Stay safe out there. Holidays are coming up. Let's do our thing and ring in a new year. But I'll be back, and this is Raphael Garcia. Thank you for listening to episode 101 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast.